Should be working? Okay.
Hi, my name is Mark Barnhart, and I would like to welcome you to the 2016 Accessibility Summit and the workshop presentation, Social Skills for Special Needs Students in Academic Settings. Just a reminder to please fill out the evaluation form before you leave. That's the green one. As soon as the workshop ends, please head to the Smith Center Auditorium for a short closing session at 3. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Chris Haley. He is a licensed clinical psychologist with 22 years of experience treating children, adolescents, and adults. He specializes in teaching social skills to patients of all ages. He is the owner of 2 private practices, Psychological and Life Skills Associates, and the Social Skills Center located in Woodbridge and Fredericksburg, and is opening the Social Skills Center in the Oakton area in 2016. Dr. Haley has authored a book, DVD, entitled Peer Process Social Skills Groups, a treatment manual for mental health therapists, behavioral specialists, and school professionals. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Haley.
Thank you, Barb. All right. Looks like most people are here, so let's just get started. A few people shuffling in. All right. Just shutting the door. Okay. I'm going to start off today with a story from when I was very young. I consider myself fortunate in that before I was born, my parents bought a piece of land and built a house in the suburbs of Buffalo, New York. Buffalo contingency in the back, very nice. Only one. Oh, 2 Buffalo, nice, excellent. But I'm fortunate because at the exact same time my parents were building this house, other younger couples who were also having kids were building houses on the exact same street. And my parents were very social people. So they befriended a lot of these parents with the younger kids when I was an infant. And I started having play dates when I was a little toddler, and we had lots of neighborhood activities and lots of functions. And as such, I developed 3 great relationships with kids that lived right on my street, 1 or 2 houses down. Jim, John, and Tracy we were basically inseparable. Jim, I said, he's still my best friend today, 40-something years later. Typically, when kids go off to school that first day of kindergarten and you have to get on that school bus and walk into Ellicott Elementary, that's daunting. There can be, you get the wobbly knees, the heart racing, the butterflies in the stomach, and you get that negative self-talk in your head. Well, not with us, luckily, because we got on that school bus with a lot of confidence because we did it together. We walked into the school like we owned the place, even though we were little kids. My kindergarten teacher was awesome. Her name was Mrs. Lovelace. She was the grandmotherly type, caring, nurturing, compassionate, patient, just an empathic, awesome woman. When we went to the cafeteria for lunch, I don't know, this is about 1975. When we went to the cafeteria, we had those really long rectangular tables. It seemed like they were 100 yards long. Well, we would sit at our end of the table, and naturally we'd chat it up. It's different than it is nowadays, and kids have the 20-minute lunches. They wolf it down and have to go right back to class. Our lunches were about 45 minutes long. We could eat our lunch and then spend the rest of the time talking. Not about Minecraft, not doing this. You know what we talked about? It's like, what are we going to do outside after school, even in Buffalo? What are you going to do outside? We lived in the woods. It's like, are we going to explore the woods behind your house, or maybe we'll play a game of kickball or freeze tag? We had a lunch monitor. Her name was Mrs. Kowalski. She was very different than Mrs. Lovelace. Mrs. Lovelace was over here on the continuum from passive to assertive to aggressive. The lunch lady, she was way over here. She ruled with an iron fist. She grabbed the bull by the horns kind of lady. And we were young, but we were boys, so there was a little bit of shenanigans going on in the lunchroom, nothing major. But Mrs. Kowalski would come by the table, and she'd put her hands down and be, boys, no food fights today, right? And we'd go, yes, Mrs. Kowalski. And then she'd walk away and we'd joke, let's bring super glue tomorrow. So we'll put it right on the corners of the table. So when she puts her hands on there, she gets stuck. We never did it. But we talked about it. It was funny. But as we were talking with my friends that I had grown up with, I remember, and this is not a one-time thing, this is multiple times of me looking all the way down at that end of the table that seemed like 100 yards long, and there was one kid sitting all by himself. Not one time, but many, many days in a row. And he wasn't in our kindergarten class. His name was Peter. He was in the other kindergarten class, so I didn't know him well. But Peter was seen as different. Peter came to school with his hair disheveled. His eyes and his bangs were covering his eyes because they were long. He always had his head down. His clothes were often mismatched, and they were often dirty. And I remember as I talked to my friends, looking all the way down at the other end, and I remember something didn't sit right with me. There was something wrong about that. But I had Miss Lovelace, my ace in the hole, the caring, empathic kindergarten teacher. Certainly, she's going to do something about this. She'll help poor Peter out. But I specifically remember multiple times her walking down and walking right by. But that's okay. It's okay. Because I had my safety net, Mrs. Kowalski, the tough, aggressive lady. Certainly, she's going to step up and help poor Peter out. And again, same thing. She walked right by too. That didn't feel right to me. So I went home and I talked to my parents about it. And I said, there's this poor kid, Peter, that's sitting all the way down at the end of the table by himself. And they said, well, listen, dude, you got a birthday party coming up. Why don't you invite Peter? Make friends with him. So I did. It must have been my 6th birthday party. I don't remember much of that birthday party, but I'll tell you this. I remember the gift that Peter gave me. It was a hard-covered, just like a Sherlock Holmes mystery book. It was wrapped in white tissue paper with a green bow, and I'll never forget it. But even at my party, we tried to get Peter into the milieu with the rest of the group. And he'd be there for a second or a couple minutes maybe, but then he'd be off again in the periphery. And we'd try to bring him on back into the group, but then he'd be off in the periphery. I didn't have the vocabulary back then that I certainly do now as a psychologist when it comes to feelings. But I can't help but think what he was going through sitting at the end of that table by himself, in words like shame, embarrassment, and a step further, humiliation, to sit at the end of that table by yourself. Psychologists say each of us has but a few life-changing, game-altering moments in our lives. 3, 4, 5 things that totally drive us to do what we do in life. Experiences which motivate us or push us in a certain direction. I can tell you, as I stand before you right now with 100% certainty, that experience with Peter altered the direction of my life. And I wouldn't be standing here sharing my passion for teaching social skills if it wasn't for that experience with Peter and for other experiences I had along the way of similar things. Does anybody know, people my age, mid-40s and older, anyone know the radio guy, Paul Harvey? Remember him? And now the rest of the story. Paul Harvey. Good day. Paul Harvey. I wish, what's that? Page 2. But here's the irony. I wish I had the rest of the story for Peter. One day, he just wasn't there anymore. I don't know if he moved to a different school. I don't know if the parents decided to homeschool him, or maybe he moved. But I always think about him. I always think, hope, and pray that his life turned out okay. You see, Peter, unfortunately, lacked social skills. I am a huge believer that social skills are the key to life. In that, if you're a good communicator, if you are an exceptional listener, if you can network and you can connect with people, you're going to be successful in life. Now, I'm probably going to ask some parents to cover your ears here, but I'm going to take it a step further. I believe social skills correlate higher with success than school grades. We all know people in our lives that are very book smart, but lack social graces, and therefore they struggle in life. We also know people who maybe weren't exceptional students, maybe BC students, who are exceptional socially, and because of that, they do very well in life. My best friend Jim, who I spoke of earlier, still lives in Buffalo. He owns the largest printing company in Buffalo. He has over 120 employees. He built his business in a down economy, and trust me, Buffalo had a down economy. In a down economy and in a dying industry. And how did he do it? He and I talk about social stuff all the time. He did it because he is exceptional in the way he relates and connects to those that work for him and those that he does business with. I call these skills essential social skills, essential life skills. Today I want to share some of this stuff with you. I want to talk a little bit about social skills and how the specific method that I use. Before we do that, I just want to say one quick thing. I'm the owner of 2 private practices. I'm very proud to announce that Psychological and Life Skills Associates, we are now celebrating our 27th year here in Northern Virginia. I work with 14 associates there. We have a wide variety of specialty areas. I want to give a particular mention of my associate in the back, Dr. Susie Long, who not only is a licensed clinical psychologist, but a nationally certified school psychologist as well. Dr. Long is an expert at individual therapy, family therapy, group therapy at Psychological and Life Skills Associates, and thank you for helping me with the recording today. My passion has always been social skills. It has been my fantasy to open up a social skills center. In 2013, I opened up my social skills center in Woodbridge. We've expanded. Both practices are now down in Fredericksburg, and you saw on the first slide, both practices are coming up here to our Oakton, Vienna office, coming hopefully August 1st of this summer. There are 6 words on that slide. This right here, to talk about this, is really an 8-hour workshop. I'm going to give it to you in 8 minutes. I thought I had an hour and 15. I really only have an hour, so I'm trying to get it all in. Historically, this is how you teach social skills. Historically, everybody uses a structured approach. A structured approach is also called an educational approach or a manualized approach. It's basically what you think it would be. 8 chapters. Each chapter corresponds to a week where you teach a skill. For example, week 1 may be eye contact. So during week 1, you flip to chapter 1. Week 2 may be personal space. So then you focus the next week on chapter 2. This is how I was trained to teach social skills back in my doctoral program in the 1990s. While this may work for some people, it certainly never worked for me. And I'm going to give you some stories as to why. I once had a patient, I was being supervised by a very well-known psychologist who wrote a structured manual on social skills. Unfortunately, the patient, although she needed social skills, wanted to spend some time talking about her relationship with her boyfriend. She was 23 years old. I brought this to my supervisor in our supervision meeting, and the supervisor says, okay, no problem. Spend 5 minutes talking to her about her boyfriend, then get back to the manual. Wasn't meeting her where she's at and what she needed in the moment. Different supervisor, I had a case where the 6-year-old needed some social skills help. And one of the primary ways that these structured, the model uses is role playing, where you role play back and forth. So the supervisor says, okay, get down on your hands and knees, get on the level of the 6-year-old, and teach social skills that way. So I did exactly what the supervisor said. I got on the ground. His name was Billy. And I say, "Hi, Billy. My name's Chris. I want you to pretend I'm a 6-year-old so we can practice our social skills." And he says, "You're an adult." And I said, "No, okay, I know. Just pretend." He says, "No, you're an adult." So then I had 49 other minutes in the session to I don't know, where's my supervisor now? Additionally, with structured groups, I have a couple other things that I want to bring up about them. Again, they work for some people. What happens if you already have the skill that week? Do you skip the week? Do you come back the next week? Or even worse, what if you miss a week? How does that all work? Any Seinfeld fans out there? Anyone like Seinfeld? Okay, all right. There was an episode of The Close Talker. And remember this episode of The Close Talk? I'll give you the real quick rundown of Judge Reinhold. The real quick rundown on this guy. Okay, Jerry's living in New York City. The parents are living phase 4 of Del Boca Vista in Florida. They fly into New York City to visit Jerry. Jerry's friend is a super social guy. He takes Mr. and Mrs. Seinfeld out on the town. A great communicator, awesome listener. He just has one problem. He's a bit of a close talker. This is what he did. He goes up to Mrs. Seinfeld. "How you doing, Mrs. Seinfeld? Nice to meet you. Can I take you out on the town?" This is a guy that participated in one of these structured groups. He just missed the week on personal space. It's funny joke. It's a funny episode. So I started doing structured groups when I first started in the practice in 1999. Unfortunately, all the kids that I saw, all my groups were after school. They'd spend 7 hours a day learning and being educated. Then they'd come to see Dr. Haley at 4 o'clock, only to say, "Let's open up to chapter 4." And I'd get, oh. Education is not the way to teach social skills, especially when these kids are in school all day. I developed a one-of-a-kind program. It's called Peer Process. And my peer process can be implemented either in a one-on-one, but better yet, in a group format. Group formats are much more powerful than individual formats to teach social skills, and I'll tell you why. I can again and again tell a child, a 14-year-old boy, for example, brush your teeth before you go to school. Brush your teeth before you go to school. The parents can say it again and again. "Dude, you need to brush your teeth before you go to school." Might not change anything. Until that 14-year-old goes to school and a 14-year-old girl says, "God, you have bad breath." Then all of a sudden, it's much more powerful than he's brushing his teeth 6 times a day. Part of the peer the most important technique, and again, this is an 8-hour workshop, but the most important technique in a peer process group or in one-on-one is what's called incidental teaching. Incidental teaching involves teaching a skill in the moment, when the situation or the feeling or the behavior come up. And I have example after example after example of this. I'll give you one example right now. Here's and I have some video too that I can show you of me with a group doing some incidental teaching. If you're a teacher in a special ed classroom and a child comes up to you like this and hands in their homework like this, many times the teacher will just say thank you and take it. That is a wonderful opportunity to use incidental teaching. A great intervention there from the teacher is, "Hey, well, thank you for giving that to me. Would you try that again? Only this time with your head up." And after that happens, and then practice it. Incidental teaching is not rocket science, and you don't need to be a psychologist to implement it. Any teacher or any parent can do it with their students or with their kids. Teaching a skill in the moment, when the situation, the feeling, the behavior comes up. There are literally thousands of social skills. In the back they do. Do you have the PowerPoint presentation handouts? Yeah, it should have been on your chair. There are literally thousands and thousands of different social skills. My recommendation to all teachers of special education kids, and all parents for that matter, is to focus on my 7 essential social skills. These are the basics, the foundations that really everybody needs to possess in order to truly be successful from a social standpoint. I'm going to review them with you right now. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each one. Quote number 1 correlates directly with essential social skill number 1. Write this down. Smile and make immediate eye contact. Number 1, smile and make immediate eye contact. Why? Because a smile is welcoming. Eye contact, why? Because eye contact is consistent with social confidence. Smile and make immediate. The first thing I do when I meet a child in the waiting room, always with a smile on my face. Those of you that came to my booth and were talking to me, I'm fairly certain that whoever I talked to, there was a smile on my face and eye contact. Sometimes psychologists do studies on things that lay people like you would say, well, isn't that obvious? Why'd you have to do a study on that? I'm going to give you one right now. Take a subject who's participated in an experiment. The subject is told that through the door are other subjects waiting to be called for the experiment. The subject walks into the room, and there's 2 people standing in the room. One person's over here like this, head down, frowned. Another person's over here like this. Which person do you think, obviously the 2 people are conspirators, part of the experiment. Which person do you think that the real subject gravitates to? Obviously the person with the smile on his face. Now I don't want to offend anybody, but does anyone here work for the DMV? I don't know about you all, but when I walk into I don't have the warm fuzzies walking in there. You walk in with your stuff, there's the person at the first desk, they look at your stuff, okay, B9, go sit down over there. And then lines not with, just say there's no lines. Then you wait, then you go, they call B9 and you go up and they say, okay, look in there to test your vision. And you stand over here, okay, take a picture. I'm like, oh, I don't like my picture. That looks like a mugshot. Tough, next. Yeah, it's not a welcoming place. I had the unfortunate experience of, while I was preparing for my presentation, my laptop, I have a MacBook, crashed. Actually, the video went out, but it didn't work. So I set up an appointment at the Apple Store right here at Tyson's. Anyone been to the Apple Store lately? Anyone? What a place that is. So I'll walk in, and basically when you cross the threshold, you take one step, there's a person right there. Right there. Hi, my name is Hannah. How can I help you? Well, they look at me right in the eye. Well, my name's Chris. I have an appointment to get my laptop crashed. I have an appointment to get it fixed. Come with me, Chris. Walks you halfway through the store. And halfway through the store, she introduces me to somebody else. She says, hi, Amelia. This is Chris. He's here for an appointment to get his laptop fixed. Oh, hi, Chris. How you doing? It's going to be about 5 minutes. You're 5 minutes early. I'll call you in 5 minutes. Then Amelia comes to get me 5 minutes later and walks me back. They call it the Genius Bar. Anyone ever been there? The Genius Bar, where I'm going to get my laptop fixed. And then she walks me to this guy named Idris. And he says, hey, I'm the guy that's going to be fixing your computer. So nice to meet you. It is a night and day. DMV? Apple Store. the Steve Jobs, you know, God rest his soul. Steve Jobs. What a smart guy. What a business guy. I said, I'm going to hire people that do this. Eye contact. People that can relate. Life's about connections. Life's about relating to people. Max Eastman, who's an author. A smile is the universal welcome. Essential social skill number 2. Coming from Benjamin Franklin. Neat, write this down, number 2. Neat appearance and appropriate hygiene. Neat appearance and appropriate hygiene. Again, another psychology study. How long does it take when you meet someone for the first time for them to start forming opinions and judging you? How long does it take? 7 seconds. Says 7 seconds. I'll guarantee it's 30 seconds or less. Now, what are they basing this on? How smart you are? You haven't even spoken. They're basing it on your personality, who you are on the inside, right? Not in 7 seconds. They're basing it on your appearance. They're basing it on what you look like. Don't judge a book by its cover. Great saying, but it's not reality. What am I talking about when I'm talking about appearance and hygiene, especially with a special needs kid in a school setting? I'm talking about going to school like Peter. Your hair's all messed up. You have glasses and there's smudges all over your lenses so you can't look that person in the eye. You're not brushing your teeth. Your ears are dirty. You didn't wash your face in the morning so you have the little sleep in your eyes. You don't wear deodorant, especially in middle school or high school. Your clothes are mismatched. Your pants are pulled up too high. You have, we used to call them floods, high waters, the pants bump. Velcro shoes. I will say, I've seen thousands of kids over the years. Younger kids, even in 2016, younger elementary school kids have a tendency to be more tolerant and accepting of these individual differences. Not middle school. Not middle school. You go to school, you go to middle school with Velcro shoes, take a bullseye and put it on your back. There's an incidental teaching approach here. With incidental teaching, by the way, you always want to be gentle. You always want to reinforce success. Incidental teaching is short and sweet. The incidental teaching here typically is not directly with the child, but with the parent. With the parent. And I encourage you to phrase things 2 different ways with parents. Is it possible that, or could it be that? Not, why are you sending your kid to school with Velcro shoes in middle school? No, is it possible that the Velcro shoes bring on the bullies? Could it be that if you switched shoes, the bullies would decrease? That's the way I would talk to parents if you're an educator. Is it possible, or could it be that? In my social skills groups, especially with the young kids, we always have a set of rules. Personal space, one person talking at a time, be respectful, blah, blah, blah. One of my rules is, and this goes along with the neat appearance and appropriate hygiene, I lump it all together. No passing gas. It is not cool to pass gas, even when it's not cool. I know little kids don't have the control, but it's not cool to be passing gas in front of other people. And it's funny, because when we welcome a new group member into the group, we always share the group rules, and the kids are the ones who share the rules. So I'll say, okay, who wants to share group rule number 1? And our little hands go up. I know which one you're going to say. What's the rule? No farting. The American legend, Ben Franklin, tolerate no uncleanliness in body, clothes, or habitation. Neat appearance, appropriate hygiene, essential social skill number 2. Number 3. Always be respectful and never criticize. Always be respectful and never criticize. Now, 2 absolutes here. Always and never. So there's no way you're going to master this one 100% of the time. But you want to do the best you can. I'm sorry, but in 2016, respect's going this way. In 2016, being critical of other people is going this way. I work a lot with schools and parents. I work a lot with parents trying to guide them through, for example, an IEP meeting or a 504 meeting or any meeting in general. This gets tied into respect. Rarely do I deal with parents or coach parents who are passive, that have to toughen up to be better advocates for their kids. Usually I deal with parents who are way over on the Mrs. Kowalski end. They want to go in all fired up, and I say, let's take a deep breath and let's think this through. If you're following my plan, that life's about connections, you're going to go in and you're going to talk to them in a respectful way.